Call the city council work session to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining.
Excused.
Germaine. Here. Stringham. Here. Felder. Here. Hayter. Here. Stillgrave. Here. Mayor Clark.
Here. As I look for a piece of paper here. Okay, we're here for our work session. Manager Robinson? Oh, wait, we have public comment first. Sorry. So we start with public comment. Any comments from those present here this evening regarding this work session? We have 3 items. Seeing no public comment. Clerk, the next item, please.
The next item is item 5746, review of e-bicycle recommendations by the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trail Advisory Committee.
Manager Robinson?
Director Cochran has created a presentation as we continue our conversations on developing the proper policy that we'd like to implement here in the city regarding the use of e-bikes. And I know that Director Cochran and Director Tolstead have worked together to do some research, and this has gone before the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trail Advisory Committee, and we'll be sharing with you those thoughts during this presentation.
Thank you. Director Cochran.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Clerk Treasurer Lavoie. So this is a continuation of a discussion that we held toward the middle or end of last year about e-bikes and the city policies that we have on file related to e-bikes, and an examination of whether any of those needed to be revised or looked at. And so you may recall the City Council established the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trail Advisory Committee to advise City Council on matters pertaining to our trail network, but also pedestrian and bicycle circulation, non-motorized circulation throughout the city. Following the conversation that we had last year, this was brought to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trail Advisory Committee for them to discuss. And I will say, I know Peter Fales is in the audience this evening, a member of that committee, and Matt Vanasacker and Lucy Fortin with Manick and Smith helping to support those discussions that they had for several months that led to the recommendations that we're going to review with you tonight for your feedback and discussion as Director Tolstead and I and administration work to look at whether we need to change or modify any of the policies that we have in place here at the city. So just to flash back a little bit of the conversation that we had, the state and in some cases federal regulations that are consistent throughout the city that we have to take a look at as part of this discussion is the Michigan Vehicle Code, which talks about the usage of bicycles on roadways. And then the city's ordinance, Chapter 199, which is currently titled Bicycle, Skateboard, and Skates. We also have the park rules and regulations, which are not technically an ordinance, but a policy document that you approve. And of course, we have an ordinance that handles violations of the park rules and whatnot. But there is an item in the park rules that pertains to the usage of non-motorized vehicles. And then because we also share public property with the state and federal government and also the county in the city that have connection to our trail network, both Sterling State Park and the River Raisin National Battlefield Park in their trail network. We took a look, made some outreach to them and asked them what their regulations are. Because we frequently talk about when you're on our trails through the city, oftentimes you don't know where the property boundaries are and where the changes are. And so we looked at this discussion in the lens of somebody who is using the trails and their easiest consistent understanding of regulations as they're moving throughout the city. So the Michigan Vehicle Code, this is the state law that governs e-bikes. As a reminder, there are 3 classes, a Class 1, a Class 2, and a Class 3. Class 1 bikes all 3 are allowed on the road, just as any other bike and vehicle is allowed on the road. Related to linear paved trails, which would be like our Rural Trail or the Heritage Trail, Class 1 bikes are allowed by the state to be on those paved trails, but we do have the opportunity to regulate and set up rules pertaining to the usage. Class 2 and Class 3 are not automatically allowed on paved linear trails unless it's authorized by the local authority who governs those trails. So in our case, we're talking about our trails. So yes, automatically for a Class 1 e-bike, no, unless you're allowed by the local authority for Class 2 and 3. On natural surface trails, so this we're thinking about the perimeter trail at Munson Park, the stone chip trail that goes around Munson that is not paved. Our trail network, the red and the orange trail and the prairie trail in northern Munson Park, that's what we're talking about here. E-bikes are not allowed automatically for Class 1 and Class 2 on those types of trails unless the local authority authorizes it. And Class 3 are not allowed on those sorts of trails. And then on motorized natural surface trails such as ORV trails, snowmobile trails, all according to the state, all e-bikes are allowed on any of those trails. And then there is a component in the Michigan Vehicle Code, and we talked about this at the last presentation, that if the local authority is going to promulgate or create any rules related to the use of e-bikes, there must be a public hearing on that matter. So any questions related to this?
Questions? Deb?
So what's the difference between 1, 2, and 3?
Yes. Class 1 is a motorized pedal assist. A Class 2, and it has a lower speed limit. A Class 2 is propelled, and you don't necessarily need to pedal to make it run. And a Class 3 is the same, but it has a higher speed limit. And I forget what those are right off the top of my head.
20 and 28, I believe.
25.
28 is class 3.
3. And 20 is 2, correct? Okay.
I have a question.
Class 1 requires a pedal assist, but it helps you move faster. A Class 2 or 3, you don't have to pedal in order for it to go.
You ready? Thank you.
Andrew?
Sorry.
Nope. I would be interested as well in seeing the current allowances for non-motorized bicycles, because I know that we have, and I know that that's maybe not relevant to the e-bike discussion that we're having, but I feel like a lot of the complaints that we do receive in the city about bikes being where they shouldn't aren't necessarily complaints about e-bikes. They're complaints about regular old bicycles. And so it would be helpful for us, I think, to see where traditional bikes are and are not allowed under the current policy.
Good point.
Okay. Michelle?
How would we tell the general public about the rules and regulations? How would we educate them?
So that's a little bit further in the presentation. So we're just reviewing right now the state law that's established, that's in place right now. And then we'll get into what are the other regulations, what are ours, what are other jurisdictions doing. And just a reminder too, the state law does require every e-bike manufacturer to put a particular placard on the bike, and it's illegal to tamper with that bike. So to understand the difference of what a Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, the manufacturer is required to put an indicator on, it's a sticker about that big, on the bike itself, and you can't change it. So if I have a Class 3 and I want to make somebody think I've got a Class 1, I can't tamper with that. That's part of the state law. So the city, we also, as part of our ordinances, we do prohibit the riding of bicycles throughout certain roads in the downtown. And on this map, you'll see the roads that are colored in red, not quite that pale red, but the brighter red. So Monroe Street from Elm to 2nd Street, 1st Street, sorry. No, 1st Street. Sorry, Monroe from Elm to 1st Street, And then also Front Street and First Street, Washington Street, in areas of First Street is where it's prohibited. Also the Macomb Street Bridge from Elm to Front Street as well. And so both bridges, and the intent behind that is safety as you're crossing the bridge, and making sure that all users are crossing the bridge safely on the sidewalk. And then the Riverwalk in the area from the Monroe Street Bridge to the Martin Luther King Bridge, and then the Martin Luther King Bridge, you're also required to walk your bike. And so those are the areas where it is signed right now, and right now you're not allowed to ride your bike, skateboard, or rollerblade or roller skate on the sidewalks in these areas.
So I have a question, maybe this is part of, Andrew's question is these are the locations where you walk your wheels, correct?
Yes, yep,
It's red here,
yep.
yellow dots.
The yellow dots, those are signage and also the bike racks inventory.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna look at Andrew. Andrew, you have probably a follow-up, because this is just one segment of what you're asking, if I understand, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because you could think throughout the city, and whether it be Elm Street, Front Street, pick the street, use of regular traditional bicycles. That's your
And then
question.
were there also permitted on trails not in the downtown?
Like the World Trail and the
Precisely.
Heritage Trail, the trails out at Munson,
Yep.
correct?
So right now, we don't have any regulations in terms of the usage of bikes, whether traditional or e-bikes, on anywhere outside of just this area. So the park rules, we'll get into that because it does talk about the trail network and the trail usage. But in the sidewalks throughout the neighborhood or otherwise around the streets, bikes are allowed, permitted right now because we don't prohibit them.
Yeah, so any non-motorized wheeled vehicle would be permitted on any sidewalk or trail or anything, anywhere else in the city except for this particular location. And if I read ahead in the packet as well, and I know we're getting there, that when we talk about walk your wheels, we're also talking about skateboards and roller skates.
Yes.
And
Yep.
when we say scooters, I know that there's the two-wheeled thing with the bar where you stand up, and then there is a mobility assistance
Yeah.
mechanism to help our elderly and disabled
Yep.
residents as well. And I think those are two different things. I think it's going to be important to make the distinction between those.
Yeah, it's more the recreational scooter than the ADA
Yep.
accessibility assistance. So now we're getting into what the recommendations were from the Trail Advisory Commission, and adding on to that point. So Chapter 199, as I mentioned, is the ordinance that pertains to bicycles, skateboards, and other wheeled devices throughout the city. There are a few definitions that the committee is recommending to be added to that. Just for clarity, what is the roadway and what is a trailway? And you'll see some proposed definitions there, a sidewalk, a proposed definition there. And then, yes, here's the definition of an e-bike, and these are the different classes from the state of Michigan. So it does talk about the class 1, class 2, and class 3, 28 miles an hour. And then e-scooter, a definition of an e-scooter, and then also micro-mobility device, because as we get into the recommended revisions, you'll see these terms used throughout. And so it's important, just for that point, Councilman Felder, that the definitions are defined as you're reading the ordinance, just like any of our other ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, Section 199-3 is titled Use of a Roadway. And what you'll see here in black is the existing language, and then in red is the additional language. So right now, it just talks about operating a bicycle upon a roadway, riding in single file, except for on paths or part of roadways designated for the exclusive use of bicycles, and adding in e-bikes, e-scooters, and similar micromobility devices. And then 199-4 talks about the use of a bicycle, not using one of those devices without the consent of the owner. And that's the title, and then it goes on to make the statement much the same as part of that section. Chapter 199 or section 199-9 talks about the use of skateboards. And this is really just generalizing the language to say that it can't be operated. Instead of saying on a sidewalk, just saying any place where it's posted, you can't use it. And so wherever there's signage that prohibits it, that wouldn't be allowed. Not just on the sidewalk. Okay, now we get into a new section, 199-10, which is the use of those motorized micromobility devices. And so there's four subsections that are proposed to be added. And that's the first one basically says you can't attach the device to another vehicle. So you can't pull somebody on an e-bike or an e-scooter behind another vehicle, whether that's a car or otherwise. And then also, wherever signs are prohibited, the usage would be prohibited. So pretty straightforward. It doesn't get into in a recommendation of where exactly that should be or would be, but more just saying anywhere there's a sign as determined by the city, it would not be allowed. And then letter C gets into some of the etiquette that we've talked about. So users who are on e-rollerblades, e-bikes, roller skates, or other such wheeled devices shall yield the right-of-way to all pedestrians. In addition to yielding when passing pedestrians, operators must audibly signal when passing another operator or pedestrian. So again, that etiquette, if you're coming up and you're going to pass somebody, you have to audibly either announce yourself, ring a bell, but somehow indicate that you're going to be passing them. And then the letter D talks about posted speed limits, whether it's on a roadway or a trailway, regardless of the level or classification. So whether you're on a traditional bike, a class 1, a class 2, or a class 3, if there's a posted speed limit, you have to follow it. And if there is no posted speed limit, then 10 miles an hour is the maximum speed there. Questions so far? The first several are pretty generic, but this is where we get into some of the more regulations.
Don't see any at this time.
Okay. That's the ordinance changes. So next is the park regulations. So right now, in park regulation number 9, which it is a violation of an ordinance if you violate our park rules, but again, it's not. Every time the park rules are revised, we don't have to have a public hearing and amend an ordinance. It just comes before you for final adoption. So we have language that wheeled vehicles, which before included e-bikes and scooters, are mini bikes, dirt bikes, four-wheelers, and snowmobiles must remain on a designated paved roadway in parking lots at all times. And so the change that's recommended there is to only leave it at automobiles and other designated recreation vehicles, and then update at the end that e-bikes, e-scooters, rollerblades, roller skates, and other micromobility shall be permitted on paved trailways so long as the operator doesn't exceed posted speed limits, which again, repeating the language for consistency, if it's not posted, then the speed limit is 10 miles an hour. So it's allowing them on the trails and other places, but putting, again, that etiquette into place, top speed, because we are mixing pedestrians and wheeled device users here.
So I have a question, just to make sure I understand. It
Yeah.
says does not exceed the posted speed limits. And then if it's not posted, it's to be known that it's 10 miles?
Yeah, so, yep.
Okay. Is there going to be somewhere that says that?
There can be, yes.
I'm just asking
So,
a question. I'm trying
yep.
to, I whether I'm a resident or I come into town and I'm going along and how do I know? Just trying to think it through.
So I think a lot of it is going to come down to the education and signage plan that we put together for whatever council decides to do moving forward. Certainly we can't, it would be difficult because if we're talking about sidewalks in other places throughout the city, we don't have bike or non-motor, right now, we don't have non-motorized speed limit signs throughout the city. If we're only talking about the trails, I think we need to come up with a robust signage plan for all of our trails. And the reason the committee recommended leaving it at posted speed limits, if you remember when we had Bird electric scooters in the city for a short time, we worked with them to set a different speed limit downtown and in other areas of the city than throughout the rest of the city. So downtown, we were able to reduce the speed limit. So in some places, if we have, thinking about the World Trail in the area of Veterans Park, we have a bike lane on the roadway and we have the World Trailway. Those may be instances if somebody is riding an e-bike on the roadway, the speed limit may be higher than if we're going to allow class 1 or all e-bikes on the World Trail, then we would set it at 10 miles an hour. So the intent here was not to nail us down that every trail has to be 10 miles an hour, but to help develop a comprehensive plan of where bikes are allowed. I joked with Director Tolstead today, certainly if Lance Armstrong were riding a traditional bike on the World Trail, he could well be going above 28 miles an hour. And so we're thinking about wheeled devices of all types, blending with pedestrians and bikes on our trails that are separate from the roadway, if that makes sense.
Andrew?
Just to clarify, if you're in an e-bike, the speed limit and you're in a bike lane on the roadway, the speed limit is whatever the speed limit is for that road.
Unless council sets it otherwise. So that's the recommended park regulation change. A couple other items that they brought up. We mentioned perhaps a reduced speed limit the closer you get downtown. And then certainly ample signage pertaining to speed and trail etiquette across the entire city. We've already had some preliminary discussions thinking about the Heritage Trail, the World Trail. This summer, we're going to be breaking ground on the new Loop Trail that will go from Front to 7th Street, and the sign plan that we're going to have to put together for that. And working with our communications office and public safety to make sure they're consistent no matter what trail you're on, so that the user will know from trail to trail that it's all the same. And then there was consideration about downtown and the on sidewalk riding, considering for discussion allowing bicycles on the sidewalks until on-street infrastructure is installed. And thinking about a couple things that could be part of that conversation is to consider language and signage prohibiting cyclists from riding within X number of feet in front of a building, further out from the building front door. Install traffic calming measures. We've had a lot of conversation about this before, about planters and bike racks and other things that make it a little harder to navigate closer to the building and some of those natural speed impediments that you can put into place. And then install delineating features and inclusion of additional planters. And we have an example on the left here for a wider sidewalk, some of the markings that you can do on a sidewalk or a trail that help separate out the wheeled devices from pedestrians. And so these were just a few items that the Trail Committee wanted to bring forward, at least for discussion and consideration, not necessarily a recommendation either way.
Andrew?
I would want to make sure that if we were to allow bicycles on sidewalks until such infrastructure was in place to allow them to be more hospitably on the streets, that it's congruent with our other policies, like our streetscape designs. We looked at the plans for the Altrusa Park project last week, and part of that is sort of a design feature that goes out on the sidewalk almost to prevent the ability from cyclists to be able to we've almost built in, obstacles on the sidewalks because we're trying to prevent that thing like benches and trees and trash cans, so that the bicycles are not, so that it's not easy for them to be on the sidewalks. We would just need to make sure that those two policies are congruent if we were to take that, that step.
Kathy?
I've thought about the riding downtown quite a bit because I agree it is dangerous, but I also think about us trying to make our downtown vibrant. And so if I had a young family and I had my 6 and 8-year-old on a bike and I wanted to go downtown for some ice cream, there is no way I'm going to let them ride on the road. And so I struggle with that. So I'm glad that we have a conversation to try to figure out how to do it. The signage downtown, people don't even know when, I didn't know when we were supposed to start or stop on the road. So I try to avoid it, but not everybody can. And we don't want people to. So those are my thoughts for the moment.
So I see that you said downtown, but I think, there's the downtown and there's the central business district. And I'm sure it's somewhere here. This is the complete central business district, but it's very close to what that looks like. Because I think the central business district has some additional, like Monroe Street, I think, goes to Third.
Yep.
Right. So I try to align things to what may be known, because if you say you can ride here in central business district, what's that mean to people? Some may not even understand what those boundaries may be. And I'm not sure the central business districts kept up with some of the things with the bridge, Martin Luther King Bridge or others. So it's though I see two different items there. And yes, I know walking your wheels and not riding is going to be contrary to people that want to ride. So how far and what's that distance and the reason or purpose? And it gets tight downtown with people walking and people stepping out of the stores. And I think some of the store owners have assisted in that by putting the little planters outside their door, because when a person steps out, they're not stepping into a pathway, whether it be somebody running, walking, or whatever it might be, or a bike, e-bike. So that's helping, but I just try to think, how do we make that work?
And if I may, if you look closely at this map where you see there is no riding allowed on the sidewalks, you'll notice the characteristics of the buildings that have frontage along those routes, and it is those ones that open directly onto the sidewalk. And the doorways open right onto the sidewalk. And so the streets like First Street from Harrison to Monroe Street, the density of the buildings is not so thick. And so that's why they're allowed on the sidewalks in those areas. One consideration to think about in these areas is the placement of bike racks, so that if you are coming down with your family and you want to visit one of the buildings or the businesses that are within that area right now that are red, to have plenty of ample parking for your bicycle so that you can access it, but then potentially walk into those areas rather than ride your bike into those areas, because it is rather limited. It looks like the longest stretch is along Front Street from Harrison to Macomb Street, given it's about 4 blocks. And so still showing and permitting plenty of circulation around this area to get to the closest point where you're trying to get to, relatively easy, but also encouraging people to either walk your wheels to get to your location along those 4 blocks, or park your bike, and we'll have ample opportunities for that to walk in that area.
You might have said this already, and I just think about the river walk from, I'll say, Monroe Street down to Soldiers and Sailors. That's permissible.
It is
correct?
permitted right now, yeah.
For bicyclists.
Correct. And e-bikes, because we don't have
We
any.
don't have anything, so anything's permitted currently.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So just a couple other, for your reference, the County Loop Trail. So the new trail that's not open, although plenty of people are currently using it since last fall. substantial completion. We reached out to the county. Right now, they don't have any regulations in place for that trail, but they are interested if what actions the city's going to take given the connectivity at multiple points. And so right now, if they do not enact anything when that finally opens, and I know a large part of the reason it's not open is because of the rail crossing at 7th Street, it's not completely all done yet. Right now, you would follow where the red arrows are, where Class 1s would be allowed, but Class 2 are not permitted according to the Michigan Vehicle Code unless the county acts or adopts some regulation that says they're allowed. So if that were to open today with no new rules that the county passed, you would only be allowed to walk, ride a traditional bike, or ride a Class 1 e-bike. Class 2s and Class 3s would not be permitted by state law. But I know they want to. They will be enacting something. Michigan DNR. So the state park, once you get past Detroit Avenue, if you're on the Heritage Trail heading out to the state park and within the state park, Class 1 e-bikes are allowed only on the paved trails, where traditional bikes are also allowed. There's certain areas where e-bikes are not allowed, but they don't impact the city. Class 2 e-bikes are only allowed if you receive a permit from the Michigan DNR. And in order to receive that permit, you have to have a demonstrated mobility issue with documentation that the Class 2 e-bike provides you some mobility assistance. And so, in short, you have to either have a handicap placard or you have to have a doctor's note and get a license from the state of Michigan to ride a Class 2 e-bike on any state trail. And Class 3s are not allowed at all within the state park right now. Don't ask me how they're policing that, but that's the state laws within DNR.
I just want to go on record and say this policy by the state, I don't agree with. And it is really about how you ride the bike. There is so much confusion. Half the people don't even know what kind of class they have. And so I really think it's important to note how people are riding the bike versus trying to figure out, is there a 1, 2, or 3 on that bike that's riding by? Denying somebody to ride a bike on the trail respectfully would be like saying you can't drive your Mustang down Elm Street because the speed limit is 25 and you might go over the speed limit in that sports car. I can't get past what they're thinking. And I think it's just that it's an evolving conversation. And I hope it continues to evolve because I see a lot of people getting out that probably wouldn't get out.
So we participate in a regional Trailblazers committee, and that's made up Livingston, Lenawee, Washtenaw, Monroe County, and Jackson County. And we've been meeting about once every quarter for the past year. And it includes the DNR, the metro parks, local communities, the counties, everybody who is trying to build the trail network throughout the state or the region. And to your point, this is a topic that everybody says, well, when you figure out how to do it right, let us know. Because everybody is trying to figure this out at this point. You see the state law, you see the DNR has different regulations, the metro parks have different rules. Their metro parks basically say anything goes. You're allowed to ride a bike where you're allowed to ride a bike, a traditional bike. And so it is an ever-evolving conversation, and everybody is trying to figure it out. Uh-oh.
So I guess as you're looking for something there, I think about this. I'm trying to think the Class 3, and because you can ride it slower, just like a Class 2, and the regulations, or how you're going to regulate it is really the challenge. And it just seems to be the easy answer to say we just won't allow it, and if we see one, then we can take action. Versus if it's about speed. If that's what it's about.
I'm only speculating. I think the purpose behind what the state's law is they want you to pedal. That's what it comes down to. You have to pedal on a Class 1. You don't have to pedal on a Class 2 or 3. and you, in theory, you could zoom around at a much faster speed. And so, and that kind of gets into what the national parks rules are. Finally, the superintendent's compendium, which is the name for the regulations in each state or national park, and each one is different. For the River Raisin National Battlefield Park, the use of bicycles is prohibited except on park roads, trails, and parking lots. They shall not be operated on off established pathways, so you can't go riding through the battlefield. You have to stay on the trail. E-bikes are prohibited where traditional bikes are prohibited. So if you can't ride a bike, you can't ride, or a traditional bike, you can't ride an e-bike. Except where motor vehicles are allowed, using the e-bike to, the electric motor to move an e-bike without pedaling is prohibited. So the national parks are saying class 3 e-bikes can only go where motor vehicles are permitted. Class 1 and class 2, you're allowed to be where any bike is, but you have to be pedaling. So that's how they regulate it. So an e-bike is allowed where traditional bikes are, but you have to be pedaling, and no class 3 e-bikes.
Which seems what you're going back, just drift back, and the same thing for the DNR is they're allowing class 2, but there's got to be a specific need, I'll say, or a rider's need that they allow that to be used, the 2. Whereas I go back to the park regulations, they want you to be pedaling all the time, all right?
Yep.
And they just eliminated class 3s altogether, correct?
Yeah. So basically, they want you to use pedal assist.
Pedal assist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pedal assist, though,
Kathy?
with the class 3. Right? So I don't, it's how you ride the bike, because
Yeah.
Right. And right, because you can do all you can ride all 3, you can pedal all 3, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But they're whatever these regulations are, they're assuming that if you're on a 3, you're not necessarily pedaling, which I don't know if that's the case. It might be okay.
Again, they're not regulating speed. They're only regulating the classes and the usage of it, not speed and etiquette and things of that
So
sort.
the difference between the 2 is actually that one can go to the top speed.
Yeah.
So that's why there's, well, I think I understand why it is. I'm not saying I agree, I'm just understanding why it is.
Yeah. Yep.
I won't say it's off topic. So this is about what we're going to set. I just think about when a person purchases, what do they get? What are they told? What is their material that's state guidelines, regulation, or whatever? And I know that probably where you're buying it doesn't have to say that, but I think some do. Let you know what they want to know, what your need is, what you're looking for, and I would think they would gear that sale to what you're asking for, but still also thinking that well, you understand this is where you can ride. I don't know if I don't have one, so I don't know if they do that or not. I would think some stores probably would.
I
Some
think there is a
retailers.
consideration.
Yeah.
If you have a class 3 bike, there probably are some people who are using it as alternative transportation to get here and there as quick as they can. But there are also people who will use those just for recreational purposes too. And not maybe both, have it as your main source of transportation, but also to ride a bike on the trail at a leisure recreation purpose too. So the question is, how do we blend that together?
You're probably not going to buy 2. One when I go to work and one when I'm recreating. I would think. Maybe some people might, but I would think you'd try to find the one that's going to what your greatest need might be or use.
And we just wanted to provide that for a reference point, the county's current status, the state, and the national, as we're having this discussion about ours. But going back to the trail committee's recommendations, most of theirs revolves around regulating speed and putting speed limits, and then also communicating etiquette. And then the third part of that conversation is downtown, and what do we want to do with downtown, and how do we treat that? I know part of the challenge was with the downtown too is the way that we have our sidewalks, and thinking about like Front Street from Macomb to Cass Street, we have street trees as well. So if you're pushing bikes out so many feet away from the door, you have to maintain that handicap accessibility distance out from the door. And then if you're pushing bikes past there, you may not be allowed to ride, period, because then you'd be hitting the trees and trying to weave around where we already have benches and waste receptacles and flower planters already. So there may be some challenges with trying to say allow it and only allow it X amount of feet, because if you push them past that ADA accessible pathway, there may not be a feasible way to ride the bike anyway. So,
And in summers where I won't say is the only time, because we're seeing e-bikes and regular bikes and other items. I saw one of those scooters today. Is the cafes in the downtown
yeah.
extended out from the business out into to have a place to eat. And I mean, there's a couple places they're ADA compliant, but they're at the inch to be ADA compliant, and I don't see how that's going to work.
And we're getting more and more of those, the sidewalk cafe permits as well.
Other questions? Andrew?
I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but I know that we are talking about what the space on the sidewalk is going to be dedicated for, and if the sidewalks themselves are going to get bigger, or if there's going to be more parking or bike lanes dedicated on the roadways. And at the same time that we're talking about this, we're also talking about the one-way conversions in the downtown. And the challenge that we have in that respect is the limited amount of real estate that we have on the road to work with. And any space on the roadway that's dedicated to parking or bike lanes then cannot be dedicated to turn lanes or additional traffic lanes. And so just as we're having this discussion, it might help to have a holistic discussion comparing both of those items so that we have a cohesive policy as a city and not look at each, okay, what's our bike policy? Okay, now let's do two-way road conversions. Okay, what's our streetscape design? When each of those affects the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, and I think that's really what, in the long term, if we just kind of put this, one item at one item, then at the end you're going to say, well, this isn't going to work, and we may be changing things. It wasn't lost on me. It was about a month ago. I was downtown in one of the businesses and saw this photograph I had not seen before on the wall, and it has the picture of East Front Street, 4 lanes and sidewalks, two-way traffic. And I said, how'd they move the buildings to be closer? Because there's just not that kind of space. Well, we've changed over the years. The sidewalks are getting wider. We're putting the bump outs for the trees, or, so the walkways are close, or walking across the street is a shorter distance. But I just kept looking at the photograph. I'm thinking, and then the cars were parallel parked, not angle parked. That right there is space that's currently not. It's being used for parking versus mobility. And so I think that's part to Andrew's point as well. And we're talking about, and have for a while, a long time, about conversion from one way or two way, something for our task for this year is to get that input. And I think it really ties to all this conversation. I'd be cautious if we make some, we have to start making decisions on this. And I think that has to be part of the discussion. And I don't know, some people don't like parallel parking. I get it. It's maybe a little challenging for some, but how do you try to make it all work? Or what are you going to discard as not being workable is really it's going to be the conversation as we get there, because we want to provide all these amenities, all these opportunities. You want to have sidewalks safe. You want to be street safe. You want to have children safe. You want to have cars to park easily. You have, want to park where, more cars parking, angle than it is parallel as you go down the street. But it's a great photograph, and I'll have to get a picture of it or ask if I can get a copy, because it really surprised me when I saw that.
Yeah.
If you want to go see it, it's in Wise Guys. You can go see it right there.
Saw it on Friday.
Did you see? Yeah. I saw that and I just stood there. You staying for another haircut? No, I just got to look at this photo. So it was, yeah.
So are there,
Any other questions? So I'll ask, I mean, this is obviously through I appreciate the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trail Committee and their work put on this to bring us to this point. I won't say next steps like we're going to make something quickly, but kind of what is the next step, not the final steps, I guess.
so we were hoping to take feedback from you tonight, and then Director Tolstead and I, along with support from the city manager, will come up with some draft overall recommendations that we can carry forward. If it's going to incorporate an ordinance amendment, have some draft language for you. Also, if it's going to involve the park regulations changing, have some draft language for you there as well. So that was our intended next steps, is to actually bring some drafts to you. And so I guess it would be helpful to know, are there any of their recommendations that really stood out as either good starters or non-starters whatsoever? When we think about the speed limit, the posting, the signage, the definitions.
Comments?
Or is there a preference to move toward regulating class 1, class 2, class 3 versus more the etiquette and the speed of any bike and any user whatsoever?
Well, I'll start because I'm sure that, Kathy, go ahead.
I'm all voting for the etiquette rather than the class, because I know that there's just a lack of understanding on what people have. You can ride a class 3 bike on level 1 and ride it just like a level 1 bike. So I think that piece of it, we have to understand. And once they understand it more, maybe it'll be more clear, but if we could focus on how people are riding, I think that would be better for all of our citizens.
Those thoughts? I'm kind of at a combination. I think that we have to have the etiquette, we have to have the items. It's a challenge because I think there is people not knowing what class they have. But then once I'll say if that is a challenge, and once it's regulated, it'll get learned quickly. And I'm not talking about enforcement. I'm not talking about citations. I'm talking about education. And I think that more and more people are learning what bike they're purchasing because of these discussions. And I always watch because there's more coming out of different type of e-bikes, and there's newer and better, right? And part of it is the ride, and part of it might be, I'd be curious when you talk about sales of e-bikes, what's selling and what's not? What's the primary purchase? What's the number? I mean, if we're talking about 10% that there's only one of these and the majority is elsewhere, then we have to have something in place. I'm just kind of thinking. I don't have that data. I don't know. And I'm not sure we have to go out and do a bunch of research on this, but we have a shop that sells them. I'd be curious I'm not going to compare to some other community that doesn't have I'll say an old built out historic downtown, versus there is a downtown, but it's wide open streets. They already have 4 lanes and they're managing it because they got space to put the lanes easily, as we've seen in some of these photographs. So I don't know what that combination is, but I think it's, I just at least want to have some more information. Oh, Andrew.
I think I agree with Councilwoman Stringham in spirit, but then we have questions about how we actually enforce that. Because if we're going to hold a speed limit into effect for all, regardless of class of bike, regardless whether it's an e-bike or a traditional bike, e-bikes might have speedometers, traditional bikes do not, and then it puts a certain burden on the police department then to have a speed gun saying, hey, I caught you going, 25 and a 20, as opposed to, waving someone over who, hey, I think you were going a bit fast. Well, I was going the speed limit for the posted speed limit for the area versus, so you can sort of ask them to slow down, but what do you really get them on? So then I would lean into Director Tolsted's experience on that. as to what an enforcement nightmare that might look like. But so I think that logistically, there might be some simplicity by going with the class of bike, but I'm with you in that, in a perfect world, I think I'd prefer it just to be, hey, we're going to set standards and for speed limits and etiquette and just hope that everyone abides in the way that they should. But it took us a year and a half to educate the public that, hey, the bird scooters are there, but you can't have them on the sidewalks. It's a motorized vehicle. It needs to be in the street. I would also ask the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee what their proposed improvements are to the roadways that they see being improved in the downtown, where there is not permitted wheels on the sidewalks being allowed right now. The discussion about allowing wheeled vehicles on the sidewalks temporarily in the short term, I think is an interesting discussion that we might want to have. But what would it take to get us to that next step? And do we agree with the space allocations that are going to be recommended for that utilization? Because I know as a key part of that I sat on the advisory committee that came up with the master plan before the committee was formed. And I know that a subject of discussion was having a certain level of infrastructure in place to allow for those bike lanes for the riders then to feel safe where they would actually be utilized. And if that cost becomes high, both in the infrastructure investment that the city is going to be making and the amount of real estate that they're going to take up in the roadway, those are all things that need to be weighed against these other options. So I'd like to see what the long-term alternative is, where we can get these wheeled vehicles onto the roadways, if that is the long-term plan, and what that would look like. Otherwise, we might, if we can't come to a viable alternative on that front, we might be looking more closely at keeping them on the sidewalk, and how do you designate that this is the pedestrian part of the sidewalk and this is the bicycle part of the sidewalk. These are all discussions. So
Exactly.
I would be looking for additional guidance from the committee on that.
So just the background, we all hear from residents or others about this, and I don't know if the public safety has this or not, but primarily we receive complaints regarding whether it be traditional bikes, e-bikes, walking, the combination thereof. And what we have is it currently, I won't say working, I know we need adjustments, but how do we modify that in the short term, knowing that we have we have to have a long-term perspective of how we. I know a couple of locations in the heart of downtown that we get, and it's not just the same calls, it's other calls. Or is it just not, is it not? Maybe it's actually less than that, because just there's a more vocal of a location of a couple locations versus overall. It may not impact the same, I don't know.
If I may, Mayor, too, I'd like to circle back to the conversation we had a little bit earlier about everybody is trying to figure this out right now. And I think no matter what we do, we're going to have to continuously evaluate how it's going, how it's working, if we need to make changes. Director Tolstad and I don't want to speak for him, but we were having some conversation today about enforcement and about education methods and signage and things of that sort. And you've seen undoubtedly throughout the city and throughout the county, the digital signs that say your speed, and it tells you what your speed is. They actually make those at a smaller scale for bikes and trails that we could employ and strategically locate those, but you also get data from those. And so as motorists are passing, it's counting how many are going above the speed limit, under the speed limit, and different data. So we could always do trial things as well to help us better understand where the needs are, where the focus needs to be. And certainly if we invest in a few of those and place them along like the World Trail and other places, and after a couple months, we get data off of it that says we're getting a ton of people who are going above 15 miles an hour, or whatever we set the speed at, then we know, we got to do something a little bit different here. But also some conversation. There has been a lot done by public safety in the past in terms of enforcement and education, particularly in the downtown, in working with the DDA and DMBN and getting some messaging out. The officers being on the street and helping to inform motorists. And so we had some conversation about the need for additional activities like that. And we also, our communications department and our partnership with Monroe Community Media, I believe it is now, right? Formerly Impact. Whatever we decide in whatever direction we go, understanding we've got to do some education and work with them on that sort of engagement and get that out to the community. So enforcement's always going to be a challenge, I think.
Mike?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I'm leaning along the etiquette and speed limits, but really more than anything, I think it's going to be a work in progress, like Mark was just saying before he said it. That was what I was thinking. But more than anything, I'd like to thank the advisory commission for doing this and giving those recommendations.
And through every site, somewhere in here it talks about, abiding by the speed, but is there space in there to also include the traffic control devices? I see frequently where, it's a red light, but they just go because there's no cars, and I think that's expected, I would think, but that's nearly not always what we see, whether it be a traffic light, stop sign. You have to have the same, everybody has to have the same procedures to follow if it's going to work. Otherwise, somebody's going to think that I can step out and, somebody doesn't see somebody, and the stop sign's there for a reason. There's possibly something else coming the other way. Same with traffic lights. I mean, we've seen that. So I don't know where it's at in here about the regulations. So I can't remember. Just somewhere it said refer to that. So that's what came to my mind. Other questions or comments? I'm sure you'll be receiving more as we kind of think this through as well.
Certainly welcome it.
Okay, thanks, Mark. I know we have a couple of more items for this evening on our work session. Clerk Lavoy.
Our next item is item 5743, review of Citizens Planning Commission term limits.
Manager Robinson.
As we're bringing to you in this work session, just in the consideration that currently right now, the Citizens Planning Commission has actual term limits for how long someone could serve. And I know as we're working to get all of our boards and commissions kind of standardized in some of the language and the things that they do, especially a commission like the Citizens Planning Commission, there's a lot of learning curve that goes with that committee and a lot of education that those that participate in the Planning Commission go through. And we're hoping to get your support or your opinions on us eliminating term limits for that commission. Because just because it's written down that you have so many years you can serve and then you got to take a year off, then you got so many years you're going to serve and then you can't be on it anymore. I think when it's difficult for us to be able to attract citizens who are interested in doing these kind of commissions and interested in putting the time in and all that, I think it would be, we're looking for your guidance if you feel that this would be appropriate for us to eliminate the term limits for the Citizens Planning Commission. I know Director Cochran might have some added verbiage or details to this topic.
Mark, as you before you present or some additional information, make sure if you cover this is by ordinance, correct?
Right.
And then we have term limits on other boards, but it's regulated for a different fashion, like the DDA.
Yep.
So if you can include that in there as well, because somebody said, well, there are all their term limits. Well, not by ordinance. I think this might be the only one.
Yep.
Okay.
So out of all of our boards and commissions, most of our boards all have an ordinance that council adopted that sets out the framework and the structure and the makeup and composition and charge of each of those boards and commissions. The Planning Commission, as the city manager indicated, it is the only one where in the ordinance that was adopted by city council, at some point it was revised. City council set the limit that said Each commissioner serves 3-year terms, and they shall serve no more than 3 terms. So a total of 9 years is the maximum somebody is allowed to serve on the planning commission. The other boards and commissions, like the DDA, the Telegraph Road Corridor Improvement Authority, they have term limits too, but it's in their bylaws. So each board is required to establish and draft their own bylaws, which then come to city council for approval. And so you have to sign off on those. But just like the park rules, that's just a policy that you adopt as part of your ordinance or as part of your agenda. But for ordinances, of course, those require 2 readings and a public hearing and publishing before it can be adopted. And so this is city council telling the planning commission you can only serve 3 terms versus in bylaws where the board and commission decide we're going to give ourselves term limits. Council, do you agree? And that's how those have been established. So city council or planning commission is the only one by ordinance with that requirement. And as the city manager indicated, all of our boards and commissions do some incredible, great work. The planning commission is very heavy in a regulatory function or a judiciary function where their decision is final. They're not in advisory capacity. It is very technical in the fact that they work in the city's comprehensive master plan. They work in the zoning ordinance. They work in master planning. And it takes a long time to pick all of that up. And so it's great when we have strong commission members who are experienced and can talk, very knowledgeable because of their experience over the years or professional development in the planning commission. So having some tenure there and experience is very helpful in understanding the outcome of the cases that they hear and the work that they do on a monthly basis. So what we're bringing forth for discussion, as City Manager Robinson indicated, is possibly amending that ordinance to remove that. Of course, just as on the agenda tonight, mayor and city council make the appointments and you also make the reappointments. And so if there is an instance, and the ordinance as well as the Michigan Planning Enabling Act does talk about if you need to remove a member, there's also the power and the authority to do that. But every time a term comes up, city council has the opportunity to decide whether you want to reappoint somebody or not to continue serving. So it's not to say that everybody has a lifetime appointment on the planning commission, but they do have 3-year terms that are reviewed by you. And I know the mayor's office does great work in terms of looking at attendance records and activity and participation in each of the boards when considering reappointments. And so we wanted to bring that to you for discussion and possible next steps for consideration.
Questions or thoughts? Kathy?
It sounds like it would be better because you cannot envision every single situation that may come up. You know, while somebody is on a board, it would be better to have the control being when you're voting them in versus being required to remove them because of an ordinance. So it feels like that would be more common sense and the proper control.
You know, boards and commissions, and of course, the council, you know, it's January and it's June. There's most of the reappointments are in January. They're spaced out. So they're not, anybody on a board's not coming at the entire same year. It takes time. Mark is correct. As you know, December gets around, and the system will ask for all the attendance records, which I get and review, and then if there's issues, I have conversations and try to find out what that reason may be. And there's sometimes are justified. It could be health, it could be something else, but they still want to serve. And then what that means and how long, and then not letting somebody go the entire time if they're just not showing up. And I've had those conversations with members that just, whatever reason, it's time to move forward. I thank them, as I say, thank for your service. But we have other people that have an interest, and we rely on the boards and commissions like tonight. We rely on the people in the community to serve. It's how we get information and input, but also help do some of the lift up front. So I like to think that we as a council have managed that with we're I agree with Kathy, where term limits just says, oh, you're done, and it may not be the best time either if that's the person that you're looking for the greatest leadership on a board. When you have a newer members that are learning from that person. So I'm not a favor of term limits. I understand why we have them, the others, the bylaws, but this is an ordinance that we, as a council, that we decided to make that change years ago, so. Michelle?
I think the planning commission is the one commission where we do need the seasoned, educated people to serve on the board. So I think we should.
Mayor, can I add something also? Some uniqueness about the planning commission also. We all know it can be a challenge to recruit new board and commission members as well. And the planning commission is also appointed by precinct, which can add some challenges and difficulties when you have to have one from every precinct represented, as opposed to some of the other boards where it can be a body of 5 and the appointments criteria is a little less stringent. So when you're trying to recruit new planning commission members, and you also have some falling off, there can be some challenges that come into play there when you have term limits also.
Just to add to that, the planning commission used to have 9 members, and it was every precinct, and then some precincts you have an extra, there was 2 extra, wherever you could find, so some precincts we had 2 people. It became a challenge, and so that we as a council changed that to be 7, which made sense because you'd have 1 from each precinct, and then you'd have the 7th to make sure there's the odd number, and it's an at-large position, so that at-large could come from any precinct. And so that's how we got to 7. Just some changes that were made over the years. So, Mike?
I'm for the amendment. I know that the gentleman that served from my precinct, it just moved and was lucky that there was that at-large position that he was able to fill, and we wouldn't have wanted to lose him. So anything we can do to retain our talent, I think we should do.
I agree. And it's interesting, we still have that vacancy too, and I know that the councilman and I have talked about it, and I've talked to other people, I've talked to the commissioners, in looking for that precinct representative for the current vacancy. But I talk to people frequently about that. Always recruiting, right? So, other thoughts? If there's no others, I don't know if that's gives some direction for if we'll see this again coming forward to us, and if it is, it would be ordinance amendment, which will require a public hearing, correct? Or is it
Yeah.
2?
Public hearing and 2 readings and publication.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have one more item, clerk.
We do have one more item. Item 5731, right-of-way construction procedures for telecommunication providers.
Manager Robinson? Oh, I see Mr. Lewis is here.
Mr. Lewis.
Figured you'd want me to
excited.
fire away here because the time is growing short. Patrick
It is.
Lewis, Honorable Mayor, Council, and Clerk Treasurer, Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services and Interim Director of Water and Wastewater Utilities. I wanted to put this in front of all of you because we're starting to really get into a heated situation here. We've got multiple fiber optic providers wanting to come into the city, and so we put together a draft policy statement. I just want to kind of put it in front of all of you and highlight a few of the things on there just to make sure that you didn't have any major concerns before we issue this to those providers. Just as a brief overview for where we are, and I think many people would say we'd be happy to have some competition here in the high-speed internet world. What we've got is probably potentially in excess of competition. We have 3 major providers that are looking to come in. Omni Fiber is looking to come in citywide, and Mercury Fiber and Surf Internet both are looking right now just at the north side of the river. I don't know what their timeline is on the rest of the city build, but we've already gotten significant permit applications and things in. So without too much ado here, I did issue a memo to all of you about a week ago because I wanted to have this information in front of you. With some of our things, I just wanted to highlight on this. Attorney Buds and staff met also with Mike Watsa, who is the attorney for Protec. It was kind of I don't know what you'd call him, a quasi-governmental association of interested parties that are looking to protect the municipality's right-of-way interest, but looking at what we could and couldn't do. We want to push hard enough to represent the city's interests, but also not be unduly obstinate and also staying on the right side of what the law would tell us we can do. We're not going to put something down in front that's not enforceable. So a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about just briefly here, just to let you know where we were with them. The city opted in about 25 years ago to the Metro Act, which is where we get a distribution of funds every year from those fiber producers or fiber providers. And we get, in exchange for that, every new provider gets to pay a $500 fee, and then we license them to operate in the city more or less in perpetuity. There's technically end times on those terms, but more or less it's a $500 license, but then we get revenues every year coming back to us. I did ask for that information from the finance department. We're looking somewhere about $90,000 this year in our distribution. So the city uses that money for various activities within its public right-of-way. So that's the allowable use by law. And what does that mean? I don't know if we have time to get into all that, but basically we put that towards right-of-way work in one way, shape, or form. With that, we aren't sure that we can assess individual permit fees for these. So in other words, when they come to construction, there are significant costs, I would say, to my department in particular, but also in the water and wastewater departments when it comes to marking our utilities and doing permit reviews. One example is the surf internet people have decided they're going 20 miles underground. So that's all directional drilling in the north side of the river, basically between Godfrey and Baptiste, going up from the river to Maywood. 20 miles of permit boring means a lot of drawings that we've got to give them and a lot of review that we've got to make on those. So we aren't sure we can recoup the costs of our staff to review those permits, do the field markings, misdig markings, and those types of things. So we had originally written a policy where we had permit fees set up. We were kind of advised by Mr. Watsa that we probably can't enforce that. So I want to make you all aware of that, because as this construction starts, you're going to start seeing a lot of activity. We're going to do our best to try to monitor that, but we are not really able to recoup any of those fees. So if it was the desire of the council to take a hardline stance and kind of push back on that, we would need your direction, because there will probably be some legal costs associated with that. So that was one thing. Another thing that was in here that the providers are starting to want to put up, you notice one of them next to our employee parking lot on Scott Street, and those are the above ground cabinets. A lot of the providers seem to think they need these in quite a few areas. The permits I've gotten in thus far don't have very many yet. This policy that I put in front of you tonight would restrict those to rear yards, side yards, and basically commercial industrial areas. So in other words, we don't want them parked in front of somebody's front window. So we think that's a defensible position to take, but I wanted to make you aware of that as you start seeing some of these come up, that we, in some cases, may not have a choice but to accept them, because they are a part of what they claim is providing their services. They need these power cabinets to push signals through and things like that. So that's one other thing I want to make you aware of. This policy also we're going to attempt, and I don't know how successful we'll be at this, but for example, the first set of permits we have from the one provider shows what they call flower pots, which are like 8-inch diameter little hand holes where they get in there and splice the wires to go to each individual residence. For example, the 20-mile permits that I described to you, they have 1,300 different structures, either little vaults in the sidewalk, little vaults in the terrace, or these little flower pots, what they call them. We think it's a little premature and a little speculative for each one of these providers to set these flower pots in front of everybody's house, presuming that everyone's going to take their service, but we're already starting to get pushback from the providers saying, well, we need those, because if we need to splice in for residents, we need to have those available to us. So we're going to do the best we can to try to push back on the city's interest, but I wanted to highlight those few things in our fiber optic telecom providers policy that we will roll out to these 3 providers here shortly, kind of laying out the ground rules. I don't know if I have a whole lot more time to go into a lot greater depth. I will say that it's a good thing for the city residents that we're going to have some competition, but I think there's a line here where it's maybe too much all at one time. So we're trying our best in my department to get a handle on it so that we don't end up with the wild, wild west and everybody just setting up in front yards and drilling every which way. So we're doing our best, but I can't keep we can't legally stop them from operating within our rights of way, even if it is on a somewhat speculative basis. So I think I'll leave it there. Mr. Robinson, did I miss anything?
I don't think you covered it. Great.
Okay, and certainly I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, understanding that I don't necessarily know every single legal answer to every question here. We're doing our best to navigate through this, kind of like the e-bike discussion here. There's a lot of unknowns and a lot of different ways we could take things, but we're going to try to be firm but fair.
Questions for Patrick? I know it's a quick review of it, and I'm probably going to take some additional time myself. I think council will as well to look this over, but questions right now? I will take them. Andrew?
It doesn't sound like it, but is there any expansion of the existing rights of way through people's yards?
No, they don't have the ability to do that. They're making use of what right of way we have, and that's our challenge. We only have 60 or 66 feet in most neighborhoods, and now we're having potentially 3 more fiber providers, with at least 2 of those wanting to go solely underground, because for them it's the time to market. So no, the answer is they would not be able to use any additional properties that are not already part of the public right of way, or in some cases utility easements. Some subdivision plats do have rear yard utility easements. It'd be the same deal there. We couldn't stop them from using those, but mostly the permits that we've gotten in so far, which are in various degrees of development, so far the permits we have in look like they're using mostly road rights of way. A couple of alleys here and there, but mostly road rights of way.
And for any future construction projects, when you call Mistig, they would be responsible for coming out and marking those lines?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they will. And that, that's another thing and I didn't highlight it in the policy because we've made the decision based on what we think is best from an engineering standpoint, but the primary concern we do have is private sewer leads, because we can identify on the Mistig system where our public mains are, water services as well, but we don't know everybody's individual house service. So what we have asked these providers is to operate between 24 and 36 inches below ground, so 2 to 3 feet below ground. Most of our sanitary sewers are 5 feet or lower, which means the leads come up a little bit as you go toward the house. We feel that we're most likely to miss them if we're 3 feet or higher, less than 3 feet above or below the ground. So that's the hope. But I will almost guarantee you there will be sewer leads hit that will be shallower than we think they are, and we don't know where they are, and they won't know where they are. But that's where we're doing our best to keep them in a corridor. I told them either go 24 to 36 or go a foot under the lowest sanitary sewer. So we'll see if they stick to it, because when they get the drill rigs going, they kind of ride the waves sometimes.
Other questions?
I do have one
All right,
follow-up.
Andrew?
If there is damage to the existing sanitary sewer, who is responsible for that repair?
Well, they are responsible for the repairs of anything they hit, and we're writing that into our permits.
Okay.
Now, with that said, will some providers attempt to say, it's not our fault, you didn't mark it, nothing's Mistig, we can't be responsible, we don't know where it's at. So I would expect somewhere along the line we're going to get pushback from one or more providers. The ones we've dealt with so far seem to be reasonably cooperative in that regard, but I'll never guarantee we won't be fighting with them.
Okay.
We'll look forward to some additional information, I believe. So as it progresses, I'm sure that you'll, through the manager, will bring that forward to us. And if there's questions from council, I'm sure they can forward those along as well.
Certainly. Yeah, I think I would prefer that we adopt this policy in a couple of weeks, that we come back and endorse it. That way I can say that the policy was endorsed by city council in case I start to get pushback from the providers.
Yeah, we'd want any provider to come in here and think that, well, if we make mistakes, that we're just a way that we don't have to be responsible. And I think that's not I don't think that's happening, but I wouldn't want it to happen either. So
Yeah.
it's to Andrew's point, there's going to be circumstances, but we should be prepared for that, of what our position is up front, and then hold that. So
We are requiring a bond. I've set amount of $50,000. If it's over 5 miles, we said it's $100,000. Another legal challenge is, does that apply to private property, which would be private leads? We're going to take the position that it does, but again, who knows?
thank you.
Yep, thanks.
All right, very good.
Appreciate the time.
Thanks. Manager Robinson, anything further, or
Nothing further for this work session.
any final comments from council? If there's something, about 10 minutes, we'd take a break before the regular meeting. And Clerk Lavoy, anything that you may have? Okay. I see no more. So at this time, I'll close the work session and be back in about 10 minutes for the regular city council meeting. Thank you. And call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining.
Here.
Here.
Felder. Hader. Stillgrave. Mayor Clark.
All please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Guide our working together, give us wisdom to make the right decisions, your understanding to listen to each other, and your compassion to promote the peace and welfare of the residents of this community.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is the approval of the regular agenda.
Manager Robinson, any adjustments or amendments to the
The
agenda?
administration has no adjustments to the agenda.
Any requests of adjustments from the council? Seeing none, Councilman Hader?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular agenda.
Motion by Councilman Hader, supported by Councilwoman Stillgrave to approve the regular agenda. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining, Germaini.
Yes.
Yes.
Felder. Hader. Stillgrave. Mayor Clark.
Next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda, and for item B, approval of payments, the amount should read $2,331,352.52, 2331352.52.
Items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion. Any items from city council? Any items on the consent agenda those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Items that are on the consent agenda, if there's an item that those present wish to speak about, now would be the time to ask to have it pulled. We'll put it on later on the agenda. Otherwise, the items on the consent agenda will get passed by a single vote versus individual discussions as is under the council action. Any items on the consent agenda, those present here this evening? 5737. Thank you. Other items that wish to have pulled? Okay, seeing none, a motion regarding the consent agenda. Councilman Felder.
I'd make a motion that all items on the consent agenda not pulled for further discussion be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, resolutions adopted.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilwoman Germaini, that all items on the consent agenda not pulled for further discussion be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Hader. Stillgrave. Mayor Clark.
Yes. And clerk, that'll be then be brought to the end of the meeting, correct?
It'll be the final item under council action.
Thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is council action, item 5748, May 2026 election early voting.
Thank you. Manager Robinson or Clerk Lavoy, I think if there's any conversation.
I think this one would be one for Clerk Lavoy to explain.
Very good.
This is once again an election that we're not required to offer early voting to our residents, but we have many residents who've expressed continued support and interest in early voting. And because it's a small election, I wanted to balance that against making it cost effective. We already have to be open on Saturday prior to the election, so I thought it was a perfect day to offer an early voting option to those who would like to have it. So that's what it is. It'll be one day of early voting on Saturday, May 2nd, preceding the May 5th, 2026 election.
Thank you. As we've done early voting here most
It'll be in
recently.
council chambers. And the only requirement from the state is that we have the legislative body of the municipality approve it.
Thank you. Any questions for Clerk Lavoy regarding this item? Councilwoman,
I would like to make a motion. Move to approve the resolution enabling the City of Monroe Clerk Treasurer's Office to conduct early voting for the City of Monroe registered voters at City Hall, 120 East First Street, Monroe, Michigan, on Saturday, May 2nd, 2026, preceding the May 5th, 2026 election.
Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilman Felder, on item 5748, the May 2026 election early voting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham? Felder? Hayter? Stillgrave? Mayor Clark?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
5747, renewal of professional services agreement with Kohler Architecture for the Center 2.0 project.
Thank you. Manager Robinson, I know that we've had this discussion on this item. Anything additional or further you'd like to say this evening?
Nothing further out of this, other than this is a renewal of the, it's being brought back this week because under Robert's Rules of Order, it did not pass on the February 17th meeting, as we only had 5 council members present at that point in time. So we're bringing this back for a renewing the motion at this meeting.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Councilwoman Germaine.
I'll make the motion to renew the award of professional services contract to Kohler Architecture for $90,000 for the professional services design work for the Center 2.0 project, plus a 10% contingency for a total amount not to exceed $99,000, that the Assistant City Manager, Director of Economic and Community Development be authorized to execute any necessary agreements on behalf of the city.
There's a motion from Councilwoman Germaine, supported by Councilman Hayter, on item 5747, the renewal of the professional service agreement for Kohler Architect for the Center 2.0 project. Clerk, please call the roll.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham? Felder? Hayter? Stillgrave? Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 5745, settlement agreement, FLP Properties, Jim's Towing.
Thank you. Manager Robinson.
Your Honor, as you recall and council recalls, back in 2024, we did cite violations being done by FLP Properties and Jim's Towing, and it did result in a circuit court case in 38th Circuit Court. And throughout this process, we have been able to reach a settlement agreement with FLP Properties and Jim's Towing. And the agreement that we have reached is before you tonight for you to approve the agreement and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign and the city attorney to implement the terms of the agreement.
Thank you. Any questions from city council regarding this item? I see Mr. Bud's there, but I don't think he has any comments this evening. And thank you for the work and diligence on this. Councilwoman Stillgrave.
To make the motion to approve the agreement and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign and the city attorney to implement the terms of the agreement.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Stillgrave, supported by Councilwoman Stringham, on item 5745, the settlement agreement with FLP Properties, Jim's Towing. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jermaine? Stringham? Felder? Hayter? Stillgrave? Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is 5744, DTE Tax Memorandum of Understanding 2026.
Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, this comes to you today, as I think everybody is aware, that the settlement agreement we had for tax for the DTE Monroe Power Plant came to an end at December of 2025, and we have worked over the last year to work with DTE to properly assess the value of the power plant. Through the negotiation process, it was clear that they are to issue their IRP, which is their 3-year plan of what is actually going to happen later in this year. So it made sense to us to come to an agreement, a 1-year agreement, to where we would, the 2026 assessed value would remain the same as the 2025 assessed value, with only a slight increase based on the construction of the new security building and gates at their facility. And that is for you to agree that for this memorandum and allow the mayor and city clerk to sign this agreement on behalf of the city.
Thank you. For consideration motion, I want to add that we also have been in discussion with DTE regarding the upcoming year, as Manager Robbins said, with the RRP, which is going to be due. But we have a Meeting started early on March 16th, so those meetings will continue as we work through this year on the future after this one-year agreement. Any questions from City Council for the manager or City Attorney? Councilman Hayter.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make the motion to approve the memorandum of understanding and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement on behalf of the city for the DTE tax memorandum of 2026.
Motion by Councilman Hayter, supported by Councilman Felder, on item 5744, the DTE tax memorandum of understanding for 2026. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaine,
Yes.
Stringham,
Yes.
Felder, Hayter,
Yes.
Stilgrave, Mayor Clark.
Next item, please.
Next item is 5388, resolution for approval of confidential non-union employment agreement.
Thank you. Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, we are seeking council's approval and resolution of this confidential non-union employment agreement for the position of Assistant Director of Wastewater Utilities for Mr. Jacob LeBeau. And being able to, once you do that, understanding this is a new position from a restructuring that occurred when we had the longtime director, Barry Leroy, retire, and now these duties of director fall under Director Lewis's position. And this is a position to assist in the running of the wastewater and water utilities department. And we're hoping to get this, your approval and resolution for this agreement.
Any questions from City Council? Councilwoman Stringham?
Your Honor, I'll make a motion, move to approve the confidential non-union agreement.
Motion from Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilwoman Germaine on item 5388, resolution for approval of the confidential non-union employment agreement as presented. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaine,
Yes.
Stringham, Felder, Hayter, Stilgrave, Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item.
The next item is the item that is coming from the consent agenda, item 5737, boards and commission appointments.
Questions? Oh, you'll have to come forward, I'm sorry.
Elliot James, 633 Stone Street.
Yes.
I wanted to know, what did that mean? Was this board was nominating people for the?
These appointments?
Yes.
So as we've talked and as I put out to the community that there's vacancies available, these two items is one appointment for the Historic District Commission and the other is on the Commission of the Environment and Water Quality. Not sure I'm answering your question, though.
Yes, on the historic.
Oh, the Historic District Commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Historic District Commission we have many historic districts, individual properties, as also districts where they have the opportunity to review how some of the work gets done on certain properties. For instance, the Downtown Development Authority, downtown, any work done there has to go to the Historic District Commission for review. And I'm just kind of, I won't say winging it here, but that's part of what I know. But I know Mark Cochran, who is here, and I'm looking at the manager. I don't know if he's going to give you a better, I know he'll give you a better answer. But they also did a program the other night. Part of it is educational for the community. They were here in City Hall. We had about 35 plus people that were here to kind of learn how to do restoration work in a house. But they review those projects. The educational items, but also the work that's done that might be through the building department. I have an old historic home. Before I could do work, I had to make sure that what I was using and how it was done, and it's not restrictive, it's how do we make it work? How does it become compatible? Because materials of 140 years ago just aren't the same, correct? So the idea is you look at what you're going to do and they kind of give that a review and approval. I don't know if Mark, if you want to add some items, I think it might be helpful for not just Mr. James, but those who are listening. Thanks.
I'll sit down while you stand up.
All right. Thank you for the questions, though.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Council, Clerk Treasurer Lavoy. And Councilman Hayter is the council liaison for the
Yes.
Historic District Commission. And one of our HDC commissioners is in the audience, newest one this evening too. But the HDC, the zoning ordinance requires certain standards be met for projects within the historic district for properties that are either individually designated or a part of a larger district, to look at how do we protect the character as well as mend those against modern building and code practices to make sure that our historic districts and those properties that are part of our community's deep heritage are preserved and protected as to last another 100, 200 years. But also the education opportunities that they provide, like the program that you mentioned, and there's another one coming in April on window reglazing. But also they have certain goals and objectives that they are required to meet, part of which through the State Historic Preservation Office. The Historic District Commission also provides technical support to property owners to help achieve and apply for tax credits through the Historic Preservation Tax Credit Program that's offered at the state and federal level as well. So a lot of work that they do, both regulatory as well as promotion and education as well.
Thank you. You answered my question.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. You know, I want to follow up because on appointments, we had conversation about that earlier in our work session. It was in my comments for later, but I think it's appropriate now. When I look at how this came to be for the Historic District Commission appointment, the person that's being recommended attended the training session and has a 1913 property that has been restored. Lives in near the downtown district, just a block away, and actually had served previously, or I shouldn't say served, but had association with the Downtown Development Authority with information. So I find, as we say, we have these opportunities that present, and it comes from different locations. So that was the HDC recommendation for appointment. The other recommendation for appointment, I think, is a really neat background, and I was going to say it later, I'll say it now. Kaylin Wallace was one of our students in high school that was on the Student Advisory Council. We recall they would come and present, and saw her after that, and she was going off to college. And I said, "What are you gonna study?" She goes, "Environmental studies." I said, "Oh, that sounds interesting. We may see each other again." Well, 4 years later, same restaurant. I said, "What are you doing? Where are you working?" She works nearby in Toledo, but and as you can see by her qualifications, she has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental and Sustainability Studies. What I thought was interesting here as well is the 8 years that she facilitated youth environmental education programs. And so that's the kind of people we have in our community that recognize they have something to offer. I actually want to thank Dr. Everly, who serves on the commission on the environment as well. And she knew Kaylin from her time with the Monroe Public Schools. And I think how we nurture our youth and the opportunities at Advisory Council, knowing them as a student, and just seeing somebody in a restaurant. Of course, then they see me come and they know I'm always recruiting, so sometimes they don't look at them. No, I'm just kidding. But it was great. I think it's going to be a great addition to the Commission on Environment moving forward. So I don't have to make that comment later. So with that, is there any questions or comments regarding the appointments for Mr. James? Councilwoman Germaini.
Move to approve the resolution making appointments to city boards and commissions.
Second.
Councilwoman Germaini, supported by Councilwoman Stillgrave on item 5737, appointments. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaini?
Yes.
Stringham? Felder?
Yes.
Hayter? Stillgrave? Mayor Clark?
Yes. The next item, please.
I have no further items this evening.
For comments, we'll start with Councilwoman Germaini.
I'm first. I would like to congratulate, I'm on the Housing Commission Advisory, and I want to congratulate Nancy Wayne for her well-deserved retirement after all these years, and also congratulate Jasmine, who's going to be taking her place in her well-deserved promotion. And also remind everyone that our clocks go forward this Sunday morning. Thank you.
Councilwoman Stringham.
Well, I was going to remind you of the time change too. So we get the 7 o'clock sunsets, but don't shoot the messenger because it's not our decision to do that. And I know not everybody supports it. I also want to point you out, if you're on social media, the Monroe Parks and Rec page has been putting out their summer concert series. So I've been going in there and collecting those dates and adding them to my calendar because I don't want to miss any. So if you're into the summer concert series, go look for them. Start marking them down because we're 2 months away from all the fun that we have in Altrusa Park and also St. Mary's Park. And those dates are being put out there. So hope to see you there.
Thank you. Councilman Felder.
No comments this evening, Your Honor.
Councilman Hayter. No comment. Councilwoman Stilgrave.
Well, I had the opportunity this morning to be at the Entrepreneur Showcase for the Monroe Middle College at the Monroe County Community College. So we did 4 classes, and pretty interesting because most of the kids there have no clue what happens when you own a business. And so there were about 4 of us there, and it was pretty cool that we were able to talk to them about it, give the pros and cons, and, you know, see where they were going with their life. So that was a pretty cool thing. I also want to send out the condolences for Priscilla Hutra, who was a very huge staple in our community with the United Way, Seroptimist, and Salvation Army. She was on that board as well. Very good friend of mine, and she definitely will be missed. She's 90 years old, but, you know, she did a lot of huge things in the last probably 60 years. So just condolences there.
Thank you. So I have a few items I'll review. I want to congratulate SEMCA, which is the Southeast Michigan Community Alliance. It's their 30th anniversary, and I know some people say, well, I don't know, how do we know SEMCA? Well, SEMCA is a great, from downriver to Monroe, and Monroe is one of the founding associations they had. So when you think of Michigan Works and the Learning Bank, SEMCA is the organization that provides the support and coordination for all of our community when people are, going through the Learning Bank and the opportunity for where we find home employment placement and bringing skills. You don't have to go through those programs. You can still go to Michigan Works here. And the city of Monroe has been a partner for the 30 years with them, so my congratulations. I know they're having their anniversary dinner this week on March 3rd. So you speak of United Way, congratulations to them, of course, as they continue to work through their 100-year anniversary, but they have their Everyday Heroes coming this week. It made me think of Priscilla Hutra as well, and I'm glad you brought Priscilla's name up. Of course, there's so much. The list is very long of all she's done for our community. Way back when the St. Michael, the fundraiser for all that she did there, and it just goes, the list is very, very long. She will be missed. I'll miss seeing her in church. I see her all the time. So I think about her family in this time of their needs. So on Saturday, March 7th is the celebration of children for the Can Council, which is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I believe that's at the Mall of Monroe, right? Yes. On March 12th, will be coming up is, again, Priscilla Hutra, Seroptimist, is having their celebration of women event at the country club. And three of the things on here, Priscilla was involved in. It just gives you the as we have a member of our community, 90 years old, and all the work she gave. And I think that we have people that will continue with that legacy as well. Let's see, one more. Well, I know that for the council members, the Michigan Municipal League, the Capital Conference is next week. I know that several of the council members are attending, as well as members of staff, and look forward to that educational opportunity for council and those. Last item I have is I want to congratulate Jacob Laveau for his appointment this evening, and I say that with thank you for your service here working for the city and the service you provide to the community, but also your interest in taking on the position and task. It's a lot of work. It's a big lift, but I know you're up for it. I know that also you have long been involved with the Commission on Environment, just for your personal time of how you having that interest. And I think you'll probably have even greater opportunities in relationship from the duties that you're going to take on with that relationship between our water and wastewater departments and the Commission on the Environment. So congratulations. That's my comments for this evening. Clerk Treasurer Lavoy.
I just have two comments. One, today was the last day to collect taxes here at City Hall. So we'll enter the settlement period with the county. It's going to take several weeks, and the county is wonderful to work with. They have made some changes with their database this year, so it may take a little bit longer. And what all that means for the residents is, or property owners, is you're not able to pay your property taxes until that is finished. So you're probably the best thing to do if you still have property taxes and you want to get over to the county, call our office first at City Hall, and we'll let you know if they're open to take the payments or not. It could take 2 weeks, it could take 3 weeks, and if you call us, we'll save you that extra trip. And the other thing I wanted to say is, it wasn't that long ago that I was in a meeting with Priscilla, and I didn't even remember she was 90 because she was leading the charge. I'm on the involved with the United Way organization, and she was definitely a force. And there's been a lot of loss for the United Way this last year, 2 years, with the loss of Connie Carroll as well. And somebody made a comment that I'm sure that Priscilla was welcomed by Connie, and I'm sure they were. They were together and they were happy. So wonderful, wonderful woman.
She was, and she'll long be remembered. It came to me as you were talking because it was St. Michael We Care, the telethon. And just, this goes way back. And it just, the stuff that she was just, she had so much energy, and she had energy till her last day here. Mm-hmm. So with that, City Manager comments?
I have no comments tonight.
Okay. This time, we'll take citizen comments. If there's those present here this evening who wish to make comment, please come forward, state your name, jurisdiction of residence, and mindful of the council chamber rules of 3 minutes. Any comments from those present here this evening? Yes, please come forward.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council people. My name is Patricia D. Miles. I live in Van Buren Township, but I have a lot of ties to Monroe. I used to come here every week for dance lessons down the street. And I've done campaigning for Reggie Miller. Her district extends down to the Dundee area, but I've come here a lot. But recently I've been at the Detroit Institute of Arts, and I seen the presentation, Contemporary Art of the Anishinaabe People. And Anishinaabe, Anishinaabeg means the people of like the Chippewa, the Potawatomi, who were indigenous to this area, and the Ottawa, that's the Council of the Three Fires here in Michigan. My tribe, personally, my tribe is the Chippewas of Rama in Canada. But, well, I've seen a presentation there, and I was taken aback. It's a picture of art that an artist made of dead horses, and let's see. And in the artist's words, and his name is Gordon Coons, near the city of Cheyenne, Oklahoma, is the historical site of Washita. In history stories, it is called the Battle of Washita. On November 27, 1868, Custer of the 7th U.S. Cavalry decided to attack. It was not a battle, but a massacre of old men, women, and children. Lieutenant Colonel C. Custer gathered 875 horses and mules, and he kept 225 of the animals and shot the rest, all 650 of them, and left them in a pile at the site. So that moved me to think about that maybe we need to remove this statue, or, remove Custer and keep the horse as a memorial to these horses. So we have the anniversary of the Battle of the Little Bighorn coming up. That's 150th year anniversary. And it would be nice if it was removed by then. Thank you.
Other comments from those present here this evening? Other comments? Seeing none, we still have some item on our agenda, so looking for a motion. Councilman Felder.
Yes, Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we enter into closed executive session for the purpose of attorney-client privilege correspondence.
Support.
By Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Hayter, to go into close executive session for the reasons stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaini? Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter?
Yes.
Stilgrave? Mayor Clark?